Hello guys and dolls, welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today we are taking a look at Heath Ledger's Joker. Before we get started, roll those credits. So, first and foremost, big shout out to the sponsor of the channel, Sunlu. All of this is printed in either Sunlu resin or Sunlu filament. Super high quality, really produces consistent results. If you check out the link in the video description, there is a great way to support the channel, which is that you get a little bit of money off, we get a little bit of money for the channel, everybody wins. So if you want to show your support for the channel, check out that link in the video description and you'll get 10% off your next Sunlu order. So this model is by Sanix. I have seen it around for a while and I really wanted to do it. I'll be honest, I was really nervous about doing the face and I wasn't really sure if I was in love with the overall design of the model. But that being said, now that it's done, I think this might be one of the best models that I've done. If not one of the best models, it's definitely one of the best faces. So I did a full flesh tone on the face, and then I used a sponge to basically dab on the white, the red, and the black around the eyes. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to do it. I guess I was trying to apply it as if I was applying like regular makeup. What I will say is that because the face is white, and white is appalling at covering stuff anyway, I think that's a lot to do with why the effect came out so nicely. I feel like if there had been sort of stronger colors, I don't really know whether or not I would have got the same sort of finish, but I really do like it. So let's take a look around the model and see what you guys think. So there's a few different techniques in painting here. So as I've already talked about how the head came together. All of the trousers and the coat are all airbrushed on. The lining of the coat is all hand painted. I hope you can see in the video, I have done the hexagons that are in his shirt. I had to hand paint those. The body, the coat and the legs were all done in FDM on my K1 Max. It was the only one that was big enough because the coat comes all as one. There's no joints. What that means is that the coat and the legs being FDM, I was really worried about the detail because I'd done the face, the hands, the feet, and the back, all of back dog and everything. I'd done all of that in resin. But when you put FDM and resin next to each other, the difference is normally pretty stark. The difference is normally, it's pretty obvious. I have to say, the difference is not very obvious in this one. Had I have done the torso in resin, if you zoom in to Sanix's model, the hexagons for the shirt are actually in the texture of the print. They did not come out in FDM at all. So they're a very, very fine texture. They're clearly meant to come out on resin, but again, didn't do it that way. So I had to sort of hand paint I had to hand paint and hand figure out all of the hexagons, which is why some of them don't really look like hexagons. I also don't think they're hexagons. I think they might be pentagons. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think they might be, other than wavy. Bat Dog was a bit of a weird, so Bat Dog is kind of an obscure thing to sort of throw in. Obviously, Bat Dog was not part of Heath Ledger's Joker. It is a little weird that he sort of threw that in. Again, he was pretty cool to paint. I used Army Painter's speed paints to do the dog itself. The benefit of speed paints is that you get a variation in color. You get 3 tones pretty much just out of the bottle. And from when you're airbrushing, you don't have to water down speed paints at all. You just load them in and off you go. Challenge with that is that on large models like this, you get through a lot of it really, really fast. Like, you blow through speed paints, you really do. I feel like they really are designed, unsurprisingly, for miniatures, which they are. And as soon as you try to apply them to larger models, you will blow through a lot of the speed paint really, really quickly. But I think you'll agree the overall effect is pretty good. And the other thing that's really challenging is trying to get browns to stand out from each other. So I wanted the brown of the dog to stand out from the brown of the leather, which meant that I needed to do a really dark dog and a little bit lighter on the leather. And I think you'll agree that it actually came out really, really well. The base was a little weird. So there's sort of like a rock base in the middle, but then there's sort of this just big chunky bat signal on the side, which I don't think is meant to be rock. So I threw some leaf litter in there to try and variate it a little bit. I used one of the Stone Effect spray paints to just try and give the rock a little bit of texture. Sanix is relatively prolific for using just rocks or smoke in his bases. And maybe it's just me, but they're a little boring sometimes. They don't really add anything. They're not really part of the story. If you take a look at something like the penguin that Mike did, the base is a brick is like a brick platform that is in the sewers with a sewer in front of it, and then there's penguins, and then there's cash and all sorts of other stuff. The base is part of the model and it tells a story. A lot of Sanix's models don't. It bases to make it stand up, right? And he don't, rather than just doing a flat base where he's just sort of walking along a cobbled street or something like that, he sort of does things like this. But the base is to facilitate the pose rather than to tell part of the story or to be part of a diorama or to be part of a scene, you know? And this felt a little bit like that. So underneath the Joker, holding up the bat signal, is just this sort of this crystal, which is like a kind of, again, if it was a Superman model, then all right, crystal, like I get that, would be kryptonite, fine, but there's not really, that sort of crystal stuff doesn't really mean anything to the Joker universe, so or to the Batman universe. So it just seems like a bit of an odd, yeah, it just feels like an odd way to have done it. I put graphite on the bottom of the base because, one, I really like the finish of graphite, and two, again, the base part that sits under the crystals, I didn't really even know what it was supposed to be. Like, is it meant to be part of the Batcave? So therefore it's like part of, I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to be. So I just graphited it so that it looks shiny, and then I did the crystals. And again, with the bats sort of signal thing, I wasn't really clear if this was meant to be carved out of rock or whether it's whatever it's supposed to be. So I just sort of went with whatever I felt looked good, and that's how it's come out. The card was interesting to print. It was interesting to paint. So it is done in resin, and then it's painted in layers. It's not perfect. There's some bleed through in some of the colours, but overall, I think it looks pretty good. And I think it sort of ties quite well to the rest of the Joker thing. Again, if it were me and I were designing the model, I perhaps wouldn't have bothered with the gun, and I perhaps would have had him holding Joker cards or something like that. I don't know, but regardless, this is how the model's designed by Sanix. I don't hate the model, I want to be clear. I think the model is actually really, really cool. I just think there's some odd design choices that sort of came out in a weird way. That being said, I'd still maintain that I think the way this has finished and come out is probably one of my best models I've done. It's certainly the best face that I've ever done, and it's really sort of pushed me to want to do some other stuff with faces and try and make my flesh tones better and try and get some new effects. There's only one other thing that I'm not happy with, and that's the finish that's on the top of this. So whenever we're doing these models, we seal our models afterwards with what's supposed to be a matte lacquer.